Hey, Enough Said fans, Phil Parrish here. You're obviously fans of Marvel Comics and their characters, so make sure you check out the Capes and Lunatic Sidekicks podcast for weekly reviews of classic and new Marvel Comics, including our Quantum Zone covering all things Quasar and the cosmic side of the Marvel Universe, Comic Capers for all things classic and new in the world of comics, and brand new starting in 2019, our Ultimate Spider-Cast podcast discussing all things Spider-Man. So remember, you can find all this Marvel goodness and more on the Capes and Lunatic Sidekicks podcast. Enough said. This episode of Nuff Said is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
What is the sound of one hand clapping? What is the sound of one fist punching? What is the sound of the IronCast? Welcome once again to the IronCast. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser. And with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Tonight's episode, This Deadly Secret, Season 2, Episode 3. In an effort to ease the tension between Ward and Joy, Danny and Colleen switch gears and host a dinner party. Mary delivers a warning. Our director this week is Tao Frazier. Our writers, of course, we got our Roy Thomas, our Gil Kane, all our Marvel guys getting their writing credits. Of course, Buck gets our created by credit for some reason, and I'm waiting for it to load so I can tell you who else worked on this wonderful episode. Tatiana Suarez Pico gets our written by credit, and Matthew White is our executive story editor, as is Tatiana Suarez Pico, and of course, starting workist woman in show business this week, Jenny Lynn, our story editor. Let's talk this episode. We open up with Danny washing the blood off his fists because I believe last episode we were seeing him punch a wall for reasons. Was that last episode he was punching the wall? Yeah. Anyway, but
For reasons, exactly.
Yeah, he's got bloody fists. He's washing his hands. And of course, last episode we did do that flashback where we saw the battle to win the Iron Fist. Oh, yeah, this is kind of a talky episode.
What's interesting about that is like a little bit of the self-flagellation aspect of it. You know, I mean, growing up in Kunlun, you're always under assault. Your body's always under assault. So not having a bit of that has got to be sort of unsettling for him. So maybe it's just a way to bring on some feeling or some pain to feel normal.
I mean, it's possible. I don't know, I worry that there's a lot of anger hidden in the Iron Fist that he's, like, trying to deal with. I think that he is. In fact, I think this episode, or was it the episode before? Yeah, this episode he mentions to Davos about how to deal with your anger, we were told to punch the rocks, you know. And I kind of even think from that maybe there was this idea that they didn't get the point. And the reason why their master was saying punch the rocks is because it is futile. Because anger is futile. As we say, anger is a weapon only to your opponent. And so, that is the structure we're setting up here. We've got like a couple parallel ideas, and we actually, interestingly enough, we do have this idea of parlay, which I think is something that does come into this. We have this idea put forth that, suggested by Ward, interestingly enough, Ward, who also bails on the whole scene, that they should all sit down and have a dinner together. That Ward and Davos and Joy and Colleen and Danny should sit together and just really talk things out, figure out where everyone's at. And basically, I think Ward's idea is to say there's no hard feelings, which of course I don't think Danny ever had hard feelings.
I think in that moment, I think those are his intentions on the inside, but I don't think he's aware of it from that perspective. I think he walks in there saying, I need information. Call her over and maybe we can figure out what she's up to.
Yeah, although he's not presenting that as the idea to Danny, I don't think. I think he really, I think he's appealing to Danny's, well, I mean, I could be mistaken in how I saw it. Well, I mean, he's certainly manipulating Danny, especially when, he says, when Danny says, I have to, check with Colleen, and he's like, ooh, whipped, which is just such a weird thing. It's weird that they should go there. It's equally weird that Danny should be susceptible to having his masculinity in his household questioned in that way. Because isn't he supposed to be enlightened and whatnot?
The point is, I don't understand either how he won the Iron Fist. He's so immature, and I think to me that was an expected emotion because he's a teenager, and that's how teenagers would react to that statement. But what it's worth, I mean, I think my favorite part about this episode and slowly becoming my favorite character is Ward, and he's providing some really, really good acting. And so, his scene with Danny, despite, how bad of an actor that guy is, that scene kind of worked for me, and it was kind of charming to see them sort of be friendly. So I kind of dug that a little bit.
Oh, no, I liked the scene. And don't get me wrong, I really do love everything that Ward does here. Although I like, when he is being called out by his sponsor, and she says, first off, you lead with that. You lead with a-hole, which is Ward. He leads with a-hole. And, both to his detriment and his benefit. He is certainly a person who, does not know how to have good human interactions, I think. And I think it's interesting, when you talk about the naivete of Danny Rand. And I think maybe you have a lot of a naivete with Ward. Because I think in the same way that Danny Rand was a sheltered kid who was from first a privileged environment and then an emptied, an environment that was equally as outside of normal human society as one could be. And, you realize that in a very real way, they're both these kind of immature teenagers who don't really know how to deal with things. Yeah.
And also with Ward, this is all brand new territory for him because for the longest time before Danny showed up, he was the unfeeling, self-indulgent kind of guy that just worried about money, and he was really sort of comfortable with what he was doing. He's perfectly fine. And then after their whole situation, I felt like he became a different person, a broader version of himself, and he's still trying to pick up the pieces of what that means to be that new person.
Well, yeah, but if you think about it, what Ward was he was, in many ways, the good boy. He did what his daddy wanted him to.
Right.
And, he did indulge his own little side projects, which was fine, his drug addiction. Because that was the only method of escape that he had.
Right, but as a rich guy, he felt like that was his right,
Well, yeah, but it was basically what it is as Joy matured as a person trying to deal with Ward had never had to mature. Because Ward had all his decisions made by his dad, and he got to have his own self-indulgences. And now he's trying to
what it
deal
means
with
to
the
be
fact
a real
that
person.
The world is, well, exactly. How do you be a real boy? You never wonder about how Pinocchio actually dealt with being turned into a real boy.
That was probably my favorite part of The Next Generation was Data.
Data. Yeah, but it took Data however many seasons to get to be, fully sentient, to have emotions and to be able to deal with emotions. It's all a very fascinating question. But in Ward's case, it really is just him dealing with the fact that he doesn't know how to deal with people. And, in his NA group, it is, and we saw this from the very beginning, that he had a hard time dealing with the fact that he had to deal with other people. He couldn't talk to people. He didn't know how to talk. He brought the fancy donuts. That was his way of participating. But he didn't know how to really talk to people about what he needed to talk about. And then, of course, when Joy has found out that he's in recovery, he's very upset because he feels someone has betrayed him in the group. And he starts getting accusatory the way a child does, I think it's funny that he eventually gets to this idea, Joy probably was having me followed. It's like, yeah, that should have actually probably been your first thought.
Right, not a-hole.
Yeah, exactly. Because obviously, if she's having you followed, she's going to know you're going to NA. Whereas trying to bribe someone in your NA group to tell them that you're in NA kind of defeats its own purpose, because you'd have to know he was in NA first to find the people in his group to actually bribe them. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a little more complex that way. But we do get to, and we get a couple of little side things. Here's this thing, and I have watched a little bit ahead. I do not know why Joy is working with Davos. Now, I haven't gotten very far ahead, so maybe it's going to be revealed, but I'm looking at it right now.
Right?
Yeah, it seems like Joy is helping Davos, but I don't know what Joy gets from Davos. I mean, except for maybe like some kind of weird revenge on Danny Rand, but I don't know the revenge on Danny Rand aspect of it. Like, it just seems like a weird... I mean, I guess maybe it is just, we're bonded over a mutual hatred of Ward and Rand, of Danny, but I don't know. It just seems like Joy is putting a lot of herself out there for Davos. And, and Davos is coming out good in the deal. Don't get him wrong. It certainly was definitely beneficial for Davos, but I just don't see how Joy gets an advantage to working with Davos. But like I said, maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird, and her sort of the logic behind her anger seems really thin. It seems like a petulant child, not like the kind of emotion you would need to have in order to want to like completely destroy somebody. Which is what they seem like they're engaged in.
Yeah, honestly, I think maybe, and like I said, maybe it's just that this really isn't that well of a written episode or a series.
That's what my gut tells me. So I'm just willing to go with it. Okay, it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm just feeling like it's like they didn't really think through the motivations for anyone. They said, well, we'll just bring these actors back and we'll have them team up, which, the team up is great, but you kind of have to have a reason for the team up. Now, maybe, like I said, I haven't seen a lot yet. So maybe, like, by the 5th episode, they're like, oh, that was what Joy's plan was all along. And, like, for what it's worth, she is... Okay, I'm going to go out with a crazy fan theory here. Okay, which is maybe completely undone.
All right.
She is looking into photovoltaics, but organic photovoltaics.
What are those?
Well, that would be essentially where you create a plant that will take in sunlight and produce electricity.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So basically, rather than building a solar cell, you use sort of like, in the same way that you actually see people using algae to like create, biomass that you can burn. You have the people are genetically engineering algae to produce essentially petrochemicals. This would be, rather than creating petrochemicals, you're actually just creating electricity from the photovoltaic. Now, and oh man, I got to give a little bit of a spoiler here. So spoiler for the next episode.
Okay.
If she is helping Davos reclaim the Iron Fist.
Right.
And the power of the iron, which is a huge amount of energy to be released from an organic being. Maybe she's looking to harness that energy. And that's what she's going to get out of this at the end. I don't know if anything I've seen so far speaks to that. And I don't know if anything I've seen in what I've watched ahead speaks to that either. But it strikes me that that might be what she is up to. If she is looking to create an organic energy source, the idea of harnessing superhuman energy is exactly what you might want to be researching.
Interesting.
So that's a crazy theory.
I like it.
I don't know if it's true, but that just popped into my head as I'm thinking about what I've seen. Yeah, I like it too. It makes a lot more sense then, you know? It's one of these things like, oh, well, that actually makes sense. So maybe that's what they're doing, you know? We don't have any evidence that's what they're doing, but if they are doing something, that might be a good thing.
Yeah. It's like Mrs. Wong says they're walking in. He is the weapon. Maybe it could be weapons applications they're trying to...
Well, I mean, that's another thing, too. I mean, here's the thing, and that's not, maybe along those same lines. If you can manufacture an iron fist, and we see a manufacturing of an iron fist, and again, I guess spoilers for the next episode, if you can manufacture an iron fist, you know, wouldn't you love an army of iron fists?
Exactly.
How much would you pay for an army of iron fists, you know? You know, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. I mean, there's a lot you could, you know, honestly, the fact of the matter is, it's one of the weirdest things in comic books that no one has really explored. Well, actually, and that's not 100% true. Because that was actually the whole plotline of Project Pegasus, which was a series they did in the 70s with The Thing in Marvel 2-in-1, where he was like working security at Project Pegasus. And Project Pegasus is something that comes up in the Marvel Universe every so often, which is about how do we get energy from this burgeoning superhuman energy source. Yeah, and essentially what they would do, it was basically where you would send, that was essentially, throughout the 70s, that was like the Marvel's supervillain prison, was they would just go to Project Pegasus, because essentially they would say, well, we can either send you to Rikers, where we're going to do everything in our power to depower you, or you can go to Project Pegasus upstate, which is in upstate New York, and we're going to... And if you participate in, you know, scientific research to determine how you're getting all this energy, we will take time off your sentence. So that was an ongoing storyline in all of Marvel Comics for years. So maybe this will be a nice backdoor introduction to Project Pegasus. That would be lovely. I know, yeah, exactly. It's like something that could be. We just haven't seen it yet. You know, that's essentially the problem. We haven't seen it yet, but that is a possibility. We do get in this episode some revelations about Mary. We see her give the package of photos to Danny, and let him know that Walker is after him. But at the end of the episode, we realize that, of course, Mary is Walker. Yeah, and she's all kinds of crazy. And, for what it's worth, somehow someone that can really put some threat to Davos.
She's not, I don't think she's crazy.
You know, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I don't think she's crazy. I think that's a character she's playing. I think she's very much in control.
Oh, no, I mean, just knowing the character.
Oh, is she actually crazy, the character?
Well, when she's, here's what it is. Here's what it is. When Walker's in control, she's very much in control. When Mary's in control,
right. I forgot you told me about that. Yeah.
Like, who's the real personality? Is Bruce Banner the real personality?
Yeah, I totally forgot about it.
Yeah, so, I mean, and we get more of this, like I said, yeah, we're getting a little spoilery here, kids, but this is a spoiler podcast, so you should be used to it. But, you know, but again, like I said, there is this concept of parlay. And we have this concept that when Davos and Joy are talking, and they're like, and Davos says, you know, what if it's just a dinner? And for what it's worth, I think as far as Danny's concerned, it is just a dinner. Because they don't really... Because, first off, Danny doesn't suspect anybody. Danny is just like, yeah, whatever. Davos and Joy, yeah, I can see it. You know? And although I gotta say, it really strikes me how much Davos has just turned his back on everything Kunlun ever was supposed to be.
Right.
In order in this whole storyline, it is interesting to me, you know, from what he did last episode to the head of the hatchets to get whatever is in the vessel that he's having shipped in, to his basically participation in the seduction of the senator's wife. You know, he clearly is, you know, operating from a place that is not about, you know, any kind of moral sanctity or moral goodness. He's definitely going over.
It's sort of like the same thing that happens with extremists and terrorists. You know, they take the ideology and they turn it into a personal excuse to act evil, to give in to their emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, that is my belief in this, is that the reason Davos's father gave the Iron Fist to Dany is because he knew his son wasn't able to emotionally handle the power. That he wasn't going to be able to handle the great responsibility that comes from great power. And
yeah, I think Dany suspects that too.
Of it, you know? Yeah. Anyway, but in this moment, we have our meal. We have basically they realize that Dany has the pictures, and everything kind of blows up. Mostly because people are jumping to the wrong conclusions. Because again, Dany still doesn't suspect any of these people in this. And then later we see Dany jump to the wrong conclusions, possibly when he sees movement outside the parlay. And he kind of overreacts and does a whole thing. And it's a weird concept, if you will, that, you know, it's sort of how, like, and I think that we saw this with Luke Cage as well, where how the actions the heroes take, the actions people take, often are their own undoing. And I do feel that Dany very much undoes what he's trying to do here by overreacting to seeing people outside. You know, that had he not been overly paranoid, he would have, you know, things would have gone fine and would have gone well. But because he
it's interesting. I was wondering why they would let Miss Wong leave with Colleen and then wait until they were safely out of range to attack Dany. And I was like, okay, maybe it caught them off guard. They weren't really planning this, and the person they were really angry with was Dany because he ruined their meeting. They were hoping to get something out of the deal too.
Well, exactly. Well, that's the thing is I don't think that, and I did watch the next episode too. Yeah, you know, it wasn't the Golden Tigers, you know. But I think that's obvious as you're watching this. It's not the Golden Tigers. The Golden Tigers aren't attacking. You know, that basically Dany's overreacting, that whatever Dany saw.
Or even if it wasn't what he thought. It wasn't what he thought it was. It wasn't the Tigers. It could be somebody else. I don't know, but
yeah. But then they never attack because the only people we see fighting are the Tigers. Yeah, we only see him basically beat up all the Tigers, and then there's no reinforcements coming in for the Tigers. We see, I'm forgetting her name now, but the wife from the Hatchets just sort of stabbed the guy in the eye, but we really never see, Mrs. Wong, we never see any other people in the room, any other attack except for that. And it is just Dany overreacting. And because he's...
I was just going to say, if he hasn't been home and slept in 3 days, when's the last time he meditated? He needs to recenter himself, you know?
Exactly. Oh. Any other
No, but I
final
was
thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz?
surprised by a lot of the acting, and I love the scene at the end. It's the first time in this series where I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see how this happens, because the last couple of episodes been like, okay, it is what it is. Oh, that's some interesting stuff happening, but now I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see what happens here. Because to get the jump on Davos is impressive.
And what scene are you discussing there?
Oh, the very end where.
I'm sorry, what?
At the very end where Joy comes to see Walker, and Walker pulls a sword and actually brings it to Davos's throat. I thought that was a great scene.
Oh, yeah.
And the acting by Davos in that moment was really interesting, too. Because in his eyes, you could see, there's a moment where life or death could depend on it. And I think that's what he thrived on. And for a moment, he was kind of relishing the fact that he wasn't going to, he slit my throat, but I'm here. I need to get he had a mission or something ignited in him. That was a powerful moment for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that really was a great scene. That's really where we get the first understanding of who Walker is, and who she is as a character. And I really, really enjoyed that. And, for as much as there is to complain about this series, it does have its moments, and that was certainly one of those moments. So, I really enjoyed that. Mozz, how can people find you if they'd like to talk to you, reach out to you, discuss all the things Iron Fisty, Luke Cagey, or Daredevil-y, or anything else?
They could email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZ MANZOOR.
And of course, you can always write to me that old-fashioned email where there are Mozz Impossible instead at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Cloak and Dagger, maybe something else when I feel like it, Gotham, which is coming back, @Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEssesscr. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality.
I jumped the gun a little bit there.
That's okay, Mozz. Yes, I love your pings. Those are the best pings. Anyway, dear students, this ends our lesson in the Cage Cast tonight. Know that the path, not the Cage Cast, sorry, the Iron Cast. Know that the path of the Iron Fist is not a path to a door, but a road leading forever into the